Good day, everyone. My name is Nigel Daring. I am the originator of the philosophy of Darwinism or Darinism. I tend to say Darwinism sometimes because I want to juxtapose the philosophy against Darwinism because it's the philosophy of um, creationism. But I will sometimes slip and say Darinism because my name is actually Nigel Daring. But that being said, let's get into the philosophy some more. Um, in the first presentation I did, um, I, I, I concluded it and I said that what we're going to do in the next presentation is move on to a discussion of the formula E equals mc squared. So that's what this presentation is about. Um, Now, the philosophy of Darinism or Darwinism, uh, it's based upon my analysis of Genesis chapters 1, 2, and 3. And, and in that analysis, of course, I concluded that what's there in those pages do represent reality, existence. And so we just need to analyze those pages clearly and we'll realize um, what it is that's going on. We'll realize the truth of existence. So that's my you know so that's what the philosophy is about. All right, we had started out, of course, with um, one of the things that just to review from the last presentation, I looked at the formula F equals ma because I wanted to launch into the philosophy of Darwinism by starting out with these formulas: F equals ma, and then and then and also E equals mc squared. We looked at F equals ma, and we drew some conclusions or a conclusion. Well, what is the formula F equals ma saying? Reading it straightforward, it says force is an accelerating mass. Now, that's not the same statement as force is a push or a pull, which is what we're introduced to when we go to junior high school and high school and we're taking science and physics. We're introduced to force as a push or pull, but then when we're translating it formulaically in terms of a formula, we have F equals ma, which says force is an accelerating mass. And we said force is an accelerating mass is a distinct statement from force is a push or a pull. Now, why is that? Because in terms of examining the phenomenon of the accelerating mass, of the mass moving, we look at what it is that we can gather, which is from our senses, which is the mass moving, but we actually have not looked at the push itself because we can't perceive the push. Our senses limit us. Now, I made the point that this is a limitation of the scientific method because the scientific method is really based upon our senses, right? And instruments meant to augment our senses. So, our senses don't allow us perception of the push or pull, but it allows us perception of the mass. So that's what we look on and declare that's the force. But the accelerating mass is not the force itself. It is not the push itself. So that's um, and I scored this larger point that in using the scientific method, in using current scientific approaches, we have to recognize that we're not actually getting the whole truth. We're getting we're getting more of our limitations with respect to the truth, because the truth encompasses more than what our senses affords us. So that I wanted to underscore that point because in this philosophy of Darwinism, I, I want to look at truth as being beyond our senses, and and that you know, they're nonetheless impactful elements of reality that are there, and we need to deduce them in another way, in a rational way, in an honest way, and try to conclude an entire picture of what existence is like. And in so doing, we want to be looking at existence through the eyes of God, as God would be seeing the whole picture, not by the limitations of our senses. All right. But anyway, that's a review. Let's go on to our formula, our next step, which is defining, um, which is looking at E equals mc squared. Well, one of the first things that we want to do is uh, look at each of the terms and what they mean. The c term is the speed of light, and c squared just says it's the speed of light times itself, right? The speed of light squared. The m term is a mass, and it's important that I point this out, that the mass is a thing, okay? It's the physical presence, right, that offers resistance to a push or a pull. It's the mass is a thing. Energy, E is in the formula is energy. Now, energy in science is defined as the ability to do work, right? And it's important that I point this out, that the operative word here is ability. Energy is ability, right? As it is currently defined there. Now, the equal sign there, of course, just means is. All right, so we've got that. Energy is the ability to do work, and work is, of course, force applied over some distance in terms of current definition. But we want to consider this definition, that energy is ability and mass is thing. Let's look at the formula now, and then we're going to try to offer two interpretations just looking at this formula. Energy is mass moving at the speed of light squared. That's one interpretation. If we'll just look at it, we see that, yeah, energy is mass moving at the speed of light squared. Here's the other interpretation. We can just take the c squared term as a constant or a coefficient, because it is a constant term. The speed of light is a given. And then we just read the equation as energy is mass. And so that's another interpretation. All right, now, given those interpretations, we're going to have some problems. Here are the problems. Now, looking at the first interpretation, where we say where we concluded, reading the equation straightforward, energy is mass moving at the speed of light squared. Now, remember, energy is an ability, right? Energy is an ability. Mass is thing. Looking at that, it would make sense. A thing moving at the speed of light squared, which is in all actuality is not possible. But thinking of this intellectually, a thing moving at the speed of light squared is not an ability. We can think that a thing moving at the speed of light has an ability, but it is not an ability, okay? The thing is not an ability. My hand is a thing. My hand has an ability to swing, okay? My hand is a thing. The ability to swing is something else, okay? So the mass moving at the speed of light cannot be an ability itself. So the equation would make sense in terms of that interpretation. Okay, so an ability is not the thing producing it. That aspect of that interpretation also doesn't work. If we take energy if we read the equation as where we take the c squared term as a constant or a coefficient, where we have energy is mass, right? Energy is ability, mass is thing, right? So then we'd have ability is thing. That's also not nonsensical. The mass itself is not the thing. The mass itself is not the ability. The thing is not the ability. The thing is what produces the ability. My hand is a thing. My hand has an ability to swing, right? Right? So my hand possesses the ability, but my hand is separate from the ability. My hand produces the ability, but my hand is not the ability itself. My hand is a thing that produces the ability. The equation as it's reading is, if we're to take this idea that the c squared term is a constant, um, then then um, it would make sense to say the thing, which is a mass, is an ability. That doesn't make sense. So for both interpretations of the equations, as as given the definitions, the interpretations would not make sense. If we look at the interpretation whereby we say energy is mass moving at the speed of light squared, then we are going to realize, in terms of the definitions that we have, that doesn't make sense, because energy is ability, mass is thing. Mass moving at the speed of light squared is not an ability. Mass moving at the speed of light squared is just mass moving at the speed of light squared. We can argue that mass moving at the speed of light squared as an ability, right? But we can't say that it is the ability. Now, and of course, the other aspect, if we take the idea that the c squared term is a constant, and then we yield that, which yields the interpretation that energy is mass, then we can, the interpretation of the equation still doesn't make sense in terms of our definitions, because then we're going to get mass is an ability, or the thing is an ability. The thing and is not the ability. The thing produces the ability. All right. So given the definitions that we've taken for energy, that are current for energy, that are current for mass, this equation does not make sense. Okay? If you're going to try to interpret it. So, now, well, how can we look at this equation? How can we consider this equation so that it could make sense in a realistic way, and so that it can make sense for us in terms of reality? All right. If we solely use the c squared term as a coefficient or a constant, right? We're not We're not going to say, we're not going to take that mc squared term as mass moving at the speed of light squared is ability, right? Because it doesn't yield anything useful. It's nonsensical. But if we do this, if we use a c squared term as a coefficient or constant, just look at that as a coefficient or constant, then we'll find that energy is mass. Now, what we have to do then is redefine energy not as an ability, but as a thing. So energy is thing. Energy has to be a thing. So then mass, which is a thing, equals energy, which is a thing. Mass is energy. Energy is mass. Thing is thing. Energy is thing. Mass is thing. Thing is thing. Energy is mass. A noun, which is a thing, and which is energy, is a noun, which is a thing, which is mass. And now that makes sense. if we redefine energy, um, then we take the c squared term and just deal with it as a constant, then we can get somewhere. Mass is thing and energy is thing. Mass is thing, energy is thing, and then let's move on. So now we conclude that mass is energy. Energy is mass. Okay? For our formula to make sense. Well, what thing could energy be? What is mass? What is mass? It's equal to energy, right? Which is a thing too. Well, let's look at the current forms of energy that we have. We have mechanical, electrical, chemical, gravitational, nuclear, light, heat. Now, looking at the first five of those: mechanical, electrical, chemical, gravitational, nuclear. Those are adjectives, right? Those are adjectives. We actually need a noun. Energy is a thing, is a noun. So if we look at those: mechanical, electrical, nuclear, gravitational, nuclear, mechanical, electrical, chemical, gravitational, and nuclear, if we consider those energy, it wouldn't work for us because those are adjectives, and so we get an adjective is a noun if we're using the E equals mc squared formula. That doesn't make sense. Mass is the thing. It needs to be equal to another thing, which is energy, right? And that thing has to be a noun. So we can't have energy to be mechanical, electrical, chemical, gravitational, nuclear. Those are descriptions. Those are descriptions. We need the thing itself. Well, let's consider light. Now, light is a thing. So then light would make sense as a noun, right? So then we'd get a noun is a noun from the E equals mc squared formula. Taking the c squared term to be a constant, right? And then we'd get energy is mass, and if energy is light, then light is mass. That would make sense. The only problem here is that light is known to be massless. Light doesn't have mass. In the future, we're gonna further presentations, probably in the next one, we'll discuss light some more in terms of what it is. But light is massless. Light doesn't have mass. But it sort of gets us closer to where we are because we need the E term to be a noun. We need it to be a thing. That thing can't be an ability, okay? Because mass is a thing, it needs to be equal to another thing, okay? Now, what is our last form of energy that's known? Heat. Heat is mass. Now, if we look at that, then this is a dawning moment. Wow. Heat itself has to be a thing. Heat is a thing. Now, it would make sense in the formula if we look at the E term in the E equals mc squared as heat. And the M term, of course, is mass. So heat is a thing. The M term, which is mass, is a thing. So then we get heat is mass, or mass is heat, right? That is our conclusion. Mass itself is heat. And in reality, think of it, mass is really just heat accumulated, right? And bigger masses are just larger and larger amounts of heat that are accumulated. Well, what evidence do we have to think that maybe heat is mass? When we look at nuclear reactions where mass is lost, what is it lost as? It's lost as heat. Well, we know light escapes that also, but light is massless. Mass is lost as heat. Heat is mass. All right? We're going to talk about the importance of light again, as I said before, later on, and why light gets involved. But we must realize that mass is heat. And we look at nuclear reactions whenever those take place and mass is lost, right? Its loss is heat, right? And you must realize that even the smallest piece of matter that's built, it's built out of an incredible amount of heat. No, all right. So whenever matter is destroyed, it's an incredible amount of heat that's being released, and so that leads us to another evidence um, for why mass would be heat. Whenever matter is destroyed, it becomes heat, like in these high-speed reactions high-speed collisions that scientists do, and they smash these protons, and the particles escape, and they become smaller and smaller particles. Sometimes they disappear. Things are released. Everything just becomes heat. It just becomes lost as heat. Heat is mass. When a star dies, also when you have stars that die, what's left back? It's an area of heat, because the star that was there was accumulated mass. Was accumulated mass, which is heat. Mass is heat. Now that also leads us to the conclusion that the dark matter, the puzzling dark matter, which is in the universe, is really just heat. And heat is mass. Now, scientists know it's there, that there's this mass that's there. And one way that they know is that by heat signatures. Heat, they say, well, there's heat there. It indicates that there's mass there. Well, heat isn't merely indicating the thing that's there. Heat is actually the thing that's there, because heat is mass. Okay? So, all right. So that's using that E equals m squared formula, breaking it down analytically, logically, we conclude that heat is mass, and that all mass, all things that are built in a physical realm, right, it's built out of heat, because heat is our basic unit of mass. Heat is our basic unit of mass. And let's keep that in mind, because we're going to proceed from here and think about this some more, and try to construct the realm, the material realm, with this, based on this understanding, and we're gonna go further and try to reveal a lot more in terms of what's going on in our reality. All right, next time around, I want to address what I call movements, movement, force, and mass. I really want to look at mass some more, and especially the properties of mass, and why is it that units of heat can stay together, or so there's has to be properties to mass. So next time around we'll examine movement, force, what are forces, and because I want to really put force under more general rubric, okay, so that we don't have so many forces dealing with, and we'll look at mass again. All right, that's it for now. Take care. Bye bye.